Folks, according to my cell phone, I have 6:30. We're going to go ahead and start the meeting. Before we start the meeting, let's all bow our head in a moment of silence. Amen. Commissioners, you have the agenda for the public forum before you. Have you had a chance to look at them? And if so, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I so move.
I have a motion from Commissioner Alexander to adopt the agenda. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second from Commissioner Lentz. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. The floor is now open for the public forum. The public forum is something that this commission put in several years ago. It gives people in the community an opportunity to speak on anything you want to talk about. You can talk about your best spaghetti recipe. The only thing, there's going to be a lot of people here tonight, so I want you to try to hold your comments to about 3 minutes or less to give your neighbor a chance to come up and speak also. And when you speak, I want you to hold the microphone like I'm holding it, like you hold a popsicle right in front of your mouth, so that the people that are joining us by Zoom can hear you. And commissioners, I'll ask you to do the same thing if you'll just speak clearly into the microphone and keep your mask off. The CDC has said that all people who have been vaccinated can go inside now without masks, but the governor of North Carolina will not do that until 2/3 of the population has been immunized. So we've got a little ways to go. I think we're about 40% right now. And that came off of the news just before I came here. So the floor is now open and the microphone's sitting right here. So there it is.
Mayor, I have an emailed comment.
You had one that wanted to go first, and Alex asked about that, and I said, fine, go ahead.
Okay. Members of the council, Chuck Edwards, the state senator from our district, has introduced a bill, SB 349, in the North Carolina General Assembly that would essentially eliminate single-family residential zoning in North Carolina municipalities, including Montreat. A similar bill, HB 401, was introduced in the North Carolina House. Both have had a first reading. If passed as written, duplex, triplex, and fourplex units can be built in districts that are now zoned for single-family homes. While the bills are named Increasing Housing Opportunities and profess to be for affordable middle housing, the bills do not define the target price, with individual units priced at $500,000 or $1 million, if not more, fully allowed. These multiplex units can be used as short-term vacation rental for VRBOs and investors. Furthermore, it would appear that any homeowner or investor in what is now a single-family home in Montreat could convert it into as much as a 4-unit dwelling. These two are available for short-term rentals. Again, great for VRBOs and investors, but not for year-round residents. Members of the public can contact NC representatives and senators individually with their opinion. Details of SB 349 and HB 401 can be found on the website of North Carolina General Assembly. Members of the Montreat Town Council have known of these bills for more than a week now, and it was surprising that it was not on the May agenda, as timing is critical. Will you, the elected representatives of Montreat, put it on tonight's agenda to indicate the council's support or opposition to these bills, which will have a profound effect on the character of Montreat if passed into North Carolina law? A vote in June may well be after the horse is out of the barn. Mary McPhail Standard, PhD, 118 Shenandoah Terrace, Montreat, or 118 Shenandoah Terrace, Black Mountain.
I answered Mary Standard on that the other day, and that I'd already asked Alex Carmichael, our town administrator, to look into the bills and how it would affect or impact Montreat. He's also gotten a copy of the resolution opposed to it from Boone, North Carolina. Theirs would not quite fit ours. Not going to be a fill in the blank type thing. So we're going to have to have a resolution of our own, and I'm going to work with Alex this coming month to have it on the June calendar for the commissioners to consider. And they will have time to study it then rather than do a knee jerk right now. All right, who's next? He has a place on the agenda.
I'm Bob Wynn, and I want to, first of all, thank you all for your time and for your consideration of this matter. I'd like to say, just to begin with, that we would like to ask you to please vote down this proposal, or at the least, to postpone it until a future meeting. This proposal has been made public for 1 week now. Came out last Thursday. So therefore, the citizens and taxpayers of Montreat, and many of them, of course, some are residents who are not up here. Our attorney and even the neighbors, one just came in town, just found out about this. So we'd like to ask you to consider one of those two decisions. The proposed driveway, I might say, is public. It belongs, the town has the authority. That means that we, the taxpayers, the citizens, own that right of way. Secondly, I'd like to point out that the proposed driveway does not touch the Bowden's property at all. 90% of it doesn't. 10% of it at the very top, when it crosses the creek, touches their property. So to me, that makes it even more a public thing. This is a landmark spring right next to the creek, 108 years old. As I've counted up today, actually 7 generations of people have used that spring. Now, why do I bring that up? It's because right now, nobody knows what effect on the water coming down to feed the spring is going to have when equipment, bulldozers, backhoes, paving equipment gets up there. So the hundreds and thousands of people have used it in the past. Is it going to be there? Is water going to be coming out of it for them to use in the future? I was talking to a lady outside here a while ago. She said her father, in his 100th year, was still drinking water out of the spring, and they'd fill up a jar on the way home, and if he got sort of crotchety, she'd make him pull over and drink some of that water and get some lithium in his system. Another fella outside told me an acquaintance of his who's a bootlegger won't get water anywhere else except out of that spring. Now, I bring that up because I just want to say we want to protect the spring and the source of the water. And other people will speak about the safety issues with children lined up to drink water, with people coming to conferences. They'll talk about that. And I'd like to just say this. I had a very pleasant conversation with Ms. Bowden the other day, and understand their concerns. But I would like to point out that within 1 block of their house, within 1 block of the spring, there are 5 stair lifts and or trams that come up and down. 5 of them within 1 block. I think that's a real consideration. Now, let me say this as the last thing I want to say. I read this morning, and this is Joan Chittister. Some of you may be familiar with. She said, "Where we are must be more beautiful because we have been there than it was before our coming." So our desire is to restore that area as much as we can to its natural state and not be paved over. Thank you.
I'm Maury Gramling. I'm a permanent resident. I'm Maury Gramling. Is that better? Okay. I'm Maury Gramling. I live on Alabama Terrace, and I'm a permanent resident. I appreciate the opportunity to talk tonight. I'm here to express my dismay and disbelief at the proposal to build a driveway between Ruin Lithia and the adjacent creek. The spring has been an icon in Montreat for almost 110 years. Literally, thousands of people have enjoyed the spring and the surrounding natural area for generations. It is hard for me to believe that a beloved site such historical and joyful significance could be ruined for a driveway. The spring and the creek have already suffered enough with the destruction of the rhododendron shading the creek in the storm blowdown several years ago. When the rhododendron disappeared, so did the threatened salamanders that once thrived there. Even as a child, I caught the salamanders. And even at that time, I respected the environment and always released them unharmed. What's desperately called for is not artificial landscaping, but a complete restoration of the natural area as it once was, where children and salamanders played safely in the creek and adults could come from far and wide to fill jugs with the sweet, clean water. Has there been an actual independent and unbiased study done to know if the water quality will be affected? Are these species of plants, of animals living near the spring that could be damaged or eliminated as the salamanders were? What about the safety issues and parking? This is already a congested area, especially in the summertime. Who would be responsible or liable if a child or another person is injured? Will it be the homeowners who are asking in effect to usurp public land for their own use? Would it be the town who granted permission for the driveway? The MRA? Have any of these conditions and issues have even been considered? In closing, this proposal is diametrically opposed to the town's own open space proposal and plan. I quote from the plan: in conjunction with the town's current long-term planning process, the community response has shown that there is strong sentiment that Montreat that keep the town's unique characteristics, and they should be preserved to the fullest extent possible. When you vote on this issue tonight, remember the town's plan, but also remember the famous words of Joni Mitchell. Don't it always seem to go that if you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Remember now, folks, social distancing and masks, unless you're speaking, okay?
Thank you, Mayor. I hate to see everyone here opposed to my parents. My name is Mike Bowden. I am not a resident of Montreat, but I do need to at least stand up for them while I'm here. And I wanted to say first that our family have been a long time supporters of all of the activities here at Montreat and many of the programs that Montreat has offered. For over 50 years, my parents have come. And I remember as a child coming here and causing lots of trouble. And now I see that they're causing trouble. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that they have volunteered as the campground host and supported many programs here at Montreat for well over 20 years. They have no intention of the last thing they want to do is create an issue with the environment there, with the water quality or the groundwater quality in the stream. If you walk by their home, you'll see the beautification that they've provided and how pretty that area is. The issue of the driveway being part of their land, that there's no dispute there. It's not part of their property. I don't think that's in dispute. But I just wanted you to be aware that they've been long time residents and supporters of Montreat here. Not residents, but supporters of many of the activities here at Montreat. Secondly, I wanted to say I'm a retired environmental engineer with 33 years with the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. I worked as a field engineer, and I see all these signs that say save the creek, save the groundwater. And all of the show cause hearings and all of the public hearings that I've had to be a part of, and I think you mentioned, one of you mentioned, there's no data. This wouldn't even be something that would be presented for any kind of hearing without any kind of data. So I can tell you that from my experience, with no information, none of what I see on the signs here have any validity until, and when you're talking about a single car driveway, and it's my opinion that that's not going to provide any harm to the stream there, and absolutely no harm to the groundwater. Okay, I'll wind up. Maybe during the initial construction, there'll be some solids runoff. But all I ask, and I'm going to wind it up, is that you be fair in your decision, because there are many people here that are opposed to this, and there are just a few that want the driveway. So please be fair in your decision. Thank you.
Who does that? Now keep in mind, this second ends at 7 o'clock before our regular meeting.
It is not the drive, it is not the, it is not the owner's,
Do about that part of mine.
it is the driveway that we oppose, not the people behind the proposal. We have great respect for Jim and Jerry Bowden. Good evening, I'm Robert Hope, full-time resident of Montreat, and I represent 6 generations of Hopes, and I also am representing many other residents and cottage owners who vigorously oppose the driveway. It was only proposed a week ago and is being rushed to get approved, all before the cottage owners arrive for the summer to be aware and express their opinion. I want to say thank you to the 30 or 40 people who have shown up on short notice and a gas shortage to be out front in flesh and bone of how much we oppose this and how important it is to us. The driveway proposal is to build on a Montreat heritage site by using town land for a private driveway for part-time cottage owners who rent their house out for up to 21 guests. This will make, if they have the driveway put in, they might have as many as 4 to 6 to 8 cars, creating a 4-way junction that's going to be very unsafe. It's not safe for the people who attend and go to the spring. The spring is our center of our public gathering space. Having the cars come in is going to be dangerous to children, the elderly, and those who look after them. The Winlithia Spring and Creek is one place, a sacred place for Montreaters. It is over a century old, a century of people gathering water, meeting friends, laughing, children playing in the spring and creek, running free. This is our Montreat legacy. This is the generation, 5, 6 generations of cottage owners meeting here at the spring. The Montreat legacy equally includes newcomers and visitors and conferees who find tranquility, peace, and serenity at the spring and creek. And they are able to do this only because your predecessors made the decisions not to build on special places like the spring and creek for future generations who are now us. We should preserve the spring and creek for the next generations to come by putting the whole lot into a conservation easement, not a driveway. The proposal is to excavate land, put parts of 2 free-flowing creeks into culverts, and pour a concrete driveway the length of the unstable creek bank and actually park on top of the creek. All of this is on town property, and at no point will the driveway actually touch the Bowden's property because their property has been built beyond their property lines. Please do not live here part-time and ask the whole community to alter what we have held dear for over a century so that we can get easy parking and parking for rentals. A no vote does not set a precedent against all driveways and all right-of-ways. A no vote only means that this 100-year-old heritage site, this legacy place of Montreat, is not the right place to pour a giant concrete driveway. A yes vote does set a precedent that anybody pretty much can build wherever they want to build for their own financial gain, irregardless of the community in Montreat. Please vote no.
Okay, I got it. Is that okay? All right. I'm Ellen Hinchin, and okay. All right. I'm Ellen Hinchin, and my husband Gary and I are full-time residents on North Carolina Terrace. We are opposed to the easement for a private driveway at 287 North Carolina Terrace next to the Winlithia Spring. Right-of-way is intended to provide public access to otherwise inaccessible land. An easement to create a private driveway has the practical effect of transferring a public access easement into private hands. Because it is a right-of-way, we could all go park in the driveway and use it to wander up into the conservation easement. But that is not what will happen in practice. The property owner will take over the exclusive use rights. The property owner is already using the creek bank nearest to their property line as if it were part of their property. Neither a landscape plan nor a tree plan is included with the proposal. The creek bed lies between the driveway and the homeowner's property line. The areas around the spring and along the creek have always been natural space. If the property owner landscapes between the driveway and the creek, it will no longer be a natural open area. Actions by the commissioners should not allow the annexation of public land by private property owners. According to the town tree management guide, Appendix F, Section 5, numbers 2 and 3, any tree removal or planting in town right-of-way requires a permit from the Public Works Department. There is no plan included with the proposal. The driveway for 234 North Carolina Terrace connects across the street from Winlithia. Adding a connection point for another driveway at the apex of this dangerous curve will exacerbate the existing safety issues. The structure of the spring itself is fragile. The heavy equipment which will be used to build the driveway poses an imminent threat to the stone structure of the spring. There's been insufficient public notice given for this proposal. This is a complex situation. 1 week's notice does not allow for adequate study and input from citizens. Many unanswered questions remain. My husband Gary and I we are not alone in asking that this proposal be denied at this time. Thank you for your consideration of the issue.
Thank you, Ms. Hinchin. Who's next?
Hi, y'all. I'm Ann Kelso Hewitt, and Daniel and I are permanent residents up off Graybeard Trail on Swanee. My early history here was shaped on North Carolina Terrace, 2 houses down from the spring. I spent summers with my family and Sam Hope, my cousin, and his family in the Yellow Martin Box, 2 cottages down from the spring. My job daily was to tote 2 large metal pitchers from the Martin Box down the steps, up and around to the spring. That was a joy. Walking to clubs back and forth along that section of North Carolina Terrace, easy, no traffic, and that still continues today. Currently, the latest converts are our 3 smallest grandsons. We take every container that has a cap. We go to the spring. They play in the water. They climb all over the stone foundations, and they think it's wonderful to water the flowers. To quote them, "Win withia" does mean healthy water, and the preservation of this safe, secure, inviting place deserves an unaltered future. So please consider a no vote. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ann. And who's next? Who's up next?
Well, I am Jim Bowden.
Mr. Bowden, address the council, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I am Jim Bowden and my wife Jerry, and we are now, we live at 287, and the driveway, of course, is one that is hopefully going to help us get to our house where we have 42 steps, and it's 42 steps going up in the back and 42 steps going up in the front. And the driveway would certainly benefit us in that way. And it would also benefit others in our family who are elderly. So that's the main concern there. The other thing, you're concerned about the danger that the driveway will cause if, say, we rent to youth during the youth conferences, and we do, because the youth conferences are, I think, are a very important mission here in Montreat, and certainly has been a very important mission for the churches, two churches where I served as pastor. Our youth group started coming at the first youth conference and has not missed one. And it has made a significant difference in the lives of youth. I served on the council at Columbia Seminary, for example. And in our September meeting, the registrar always reviews the enrollment and so forth, and indicates that sometimes they're calling to ministry and so forth. And so I just asked her, I said, is there any particular program in our denomination that has influenced a lot of your students? And she smiled at me. Montreat Youth Conferences. And I can certainly validate that the quality it's had for our youth. We have 7 of our youth who are now ministers of the church. So yes, we rent to the youth conferences, but we'll have guidelines about automobiles. This is a one-car drive, and we'll encourage we always encourage only have 2 cars left at the house and park at Anderson Auditorium parking area. And they can also park in our garage as well. And we encourage, and then we say park up on Nesbitt at the turnaround right behind the house. So we're concerned about all these concerns you have.
I've got a place for one more person who's got about a 2-minute talk, 2 minutes or less.
I'm Clary Phipps of 106.
Right like
Okay.
this.
All right. Clary Phipps, 106 John Knox. My husband and I are permanent residents. I'm a 4th generation Montreater. My grandfather built it on North Carolina in 08, and I've been coming all my life. I wanted to speak to the past. I have carted many a jug of water. I've drunk many a jug of water from Winnebago I've loved with you. That's part of my childhood. The past, my father moved cars before the dam broke. I mean, I could go back through the past and tell you all these things that happened in Montreat. But I love Montreat. I am a Montreater. Today, I am so disturbed. I have told a friend, Montreat is falling apart. We're getting a motel, a hotel that could be moved to a better place. And the spring, I really want you to keep. Please keep peace in my valley for my future. Thank you.
Thank you. It's 7 o'clock, Commissioners. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Now, don't get upset. There are 2 public comment sections during the meeting, our regular meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn? I have a motion from Commissioner Lentz. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a second from Commissioner Alexander. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, if y'all would stand with me, face the flag, and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioners, again, you have the agenda before you for our regular meeting for the month of May. And if it would, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. To approve the agenda. You all ready to go? To approve the agenda.
I so move.
I have a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, now we open a public hearing for the zoning ordinance update. Who's going to lead that, Alex?
So there's the public hearing is an opportunity for the public to present any information or to ask for favorable votes or against votes against the adoption of the zoning ordinance.
I know we're not going to take action on it. We're just going to listen to what the changes are.
But tonight is just the public hearing. The action will be scheduled at a later meeting.
Right. Okay. Who's going to lead that?
There's not a leader. It's an opportunity.
You're not going to discuss it? We're not going to?
It's an opportunity for the public to speak.
Okay. All right. Floor is open for anybody who wants to talk about the upcoming ordinance changes. They're on the agenda. Did you read the agenda? Yes, sir. Please.
Bill Shy.
Thanks, Bill.
I'm the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We've been working on this for 2 years, and we submitted this ordinance to y'all in November, and y'all have been considering it. And we had some wonderful discussions with Priscilla Hayner and others in her family, which I call the Hayner Group, and there have been others. We've had public hearings, and as a result of some of that, we amended our proposal to you and submitted that, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I can go through those, but I don't think you need, they're not minor, but they improve it. And so we hope that y'all will consider it and ultimately pass it in favor. So
Okay, and those were published, weren't they, Alex?
this is required to be acted upon by July 1st.
Right, okay.
Yep.
And those changes were published, and I remember seeing them and reading them. So is there anybody who wants to make any comments about the planning and zoning changes? Okay. Hearing none, the public hearing is closed then. My communication is this, that I hope everybody's gotten their COVID shots, their vaccinations. I know that the commissioners have been working hard to get theirs, and so have the staff. We hope to open Town Hall up again in the near future, depending on what the governor of North Carolina says. But it's very, very important that everyone in Montreat and everyone everywhere get their COVID vaccination, so that we don't have to sit here and look at each other and wonder who's the guy with the white hair and no face, you know. And there's a lot of white hair and no face up here. I found myself it's more than that, probably about 2 months ago, talking to a lady in the post office and getting her to volunteer for something, and realized I had the wrong person. Please, I had, white hair and a mask. That's all I was talking to. So she kept saying when I was leaving, if you want me to do that now, I'll do it. I said, no, ma'am, I've already promised it to somebody else. But anyway, it's very, very important that we do that. I appreciate your understanding and patience tonight, because it is going to be a long meeting. A lot of comments on the Wind Lithia, and we'll listen to all of them. We'll hear them all, and they'll be all a part of a record before the commissioners decide what they're going to do tonight. So with that, I don't have anything else. Alex, you want to cover the consent agenda, please, sir?
Yes, sir. On your consent agenda tonight are the April 8th Town Council public meeting minutes and the April 8th public forum. I'm sorry, the April 8th public forum meeting minutes and the April 8th Town Council meeting minutes. And if I could go into my communications tonight, I wanted to make you aware that the Treasury Department has issued their guidelines for the American Rescue Plan Act funds. That's the $250,000 pool that we may be eligible for from the federal government. They've issued their guidelines on Monday. It's 195 pages of guidance. And the North Carolina League of Municipalities earlier this week held a webinar, which we participated in, explaining what you need to do to set up your eligibility, the paperwork you need to turn in essentially for that. So we're working on that. Haven't read all the guidelines yet. And I'm not sure what our eligible projects will be, but we'll be moving towards that into the summer. And that's it for my communications tonight.
Did you run across the place where the mayor gets a raise? No.
Didn't find that.
I can't get anything out of Angie either. Okay, guys. You've all received copies of the administrative reports, the planning and zoning report, police department, public works and water, sanitation and streets. Any comments and or questions regarding those reports that you received? Okay. Section 8 is public comment. So we're opening the floor for public comment again. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Dan Dean. Appreciate y'all's help on the planning and zoning and all the work y'all did. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Harris Ricks. We're permanent residents at 165 Oak Lane. And I can second all the things that have been said here. My grandfather started coming in 1904, so a long history. One point that hasn't been made so far is this. I've had several friends saying, gosh, if they're going to start selling off land next to the streams, I'd like to move my property over a little bit and get some more of my property on next to the stream or by the stream. I think y'all are going to be opening a real Pandora's box if you approve this. There have already been some exceptions. I know I'm still a little perturbed that the former pastor at the Montreat church was allowed to build a house on the right side of the Montreat road next to the stream. Y'all weren't responsible for that. It's a long time ago, but that was a variance. But I think y'all, there's still some hard feelings about the variances that have been made in the past. I think you're going to open that box again if you approve this driveway.
Thank you, sir. Next. You folks be ready to move if you're ready to speak.
Hello, my name is Heath Tinsley. I am Mary Purvis's daughter. We've been coming up here since our family has been coming up here since the 1920s. We request to deny the proposed driveway. I am at 363 Nisbet Lane, and there is already a driveway going to their house off of Nisbet Lane. I'm assuming the property will now have two driveways. Does regulation allow this? Do regulation allows construction that close to the creek and on top of the creek? Is there no buffer requirements for creeks in Montreat? If not, there should be. This proposal will put a second driveway between an iconic historical landmark and a previously shady natural creek, both which are highly valued by all Montreaters. I know this creek was previously shady because I used to play in it 50 years ago as a child. It was shady, cool, musty, like all the other creeks in Montreat that still have their natural habitat. The past several years, this area gets full sun due to destruction of the natural surroundings. The town of Montreat owns the spring property, probably because they rightly deem the property worthy of protecting for future generations. Earth moving work this close to this very old structure is risky for the function of the spring. What the creek needs is shade, the shade of native trees which were destroyed. The habitat along the creek needs to be restored. A drive that close to the creek will not allow trees for ample shade to restore the creek. Stormwater runoff from the driveway will cause environmental issues to the creek system below. Driveways are particularly worrisome, because vehicles are typically parked there for longer times and may leak oil, antifreeze, or other harmful pollutants onto the surface. Stormwater will run down the driveway across the street and back into the creek, if not directly into the creek. The town of Montreat has been very good at preserving the natural environment around the town. So I ask the commission to deny the second driveway request. Thank you very much.
And your name again?
Heath Tinsley.
Thank you, Ms. Tinsley. Next.
Hello, I'm David Hope, one of the owners of the house that's at the end of North Carolina Terrace. We've had family on that street for...
There you go.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Mr. Hope, about like this, about like you eating a popsicle.
Again, I'm David Hope, and we have residents at the end of North Carolina Terrace. We've had property on that street for a number of generations. One of the things that I noted, and I want to compliment you. One thing I want to compliment you on is the rain garden that you have out behind here. And I went up and noticed the sign that says, for every 1 inch of rain that falls on this building, 7,000 gallons of water come off of that into your rain garden. And it occurred to me as we're considering this request, as someone was just mentioning, the impact of having this concrete driveway and how that changes the entire water flow that currently goes into the creek, which would now contain a parking lot on top. So I'm opposed to this idea, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, David. Who's next, please? Who's next, please? Y'all be ready to step up to the mic if you want to speak.
Can you hear me? Can't tell. Is that right? No, I got to hold my paper. All right. I am Mary Rouse. My husband and I drove up here from Clemson today. I am a longtime Montreater, and I wrote something from my heart that I'd like to share with you. When Lithia Spring and the creek, Montreat's peaceful place, an aura of quiet calm touches the soul as one hearkens the soothing, harmonious flow of the freshest mountain stream water, enhanced only by the gentle trickling of the creek in Montreat's peaceful place. When Lithia Spring and the creek, Montreat's precious place, the moss carpet covering the aging stones of Lithia, the sweet scent of the surrounding woodlands, the whispering of the butterflies, the songs of the birds, and sometimes the rustling of the leaves, the only other sound in Montreat's precious place. When Lithia Spring and the creek, Montreat's joyful place, children, even the littlest, skipping to the spring, water jugs in tow, children hop rocket looking for salamanders or the occasional crawdad, the excitement in their sweet voices, the occasional expert squirt of water from the spring, and the screams of delight that follow the unexpected onslaught in Montreat's joyful place. Winlithia Spring and the Creek, Montreat's forever place. Exhausted children trudging home, lugging water jugs full to the brim with fresh, sweet spring water and their carefully guarded finds from the creek. The older ones already planning their next adventures to Winlithia, never giving thought that Winlithia and the creek would not be Montreat's forever place. Winlithia Spring and the Creek, Montreat's perfect place. The birds are going crazy as the dreadful destruction of the chainsaw invades the peaceful habitat of little birds, rabbits, deer, and bears, and with no thought to the ruination of the calm, peaceful ecosystem of forestal tranquility. The bludgeoning bulldozer further decimates God's natural beauty, while the churning cement truck pours an egregious hardscape in the middle of Montreat's perfect place. Oh, please, God, surely not.
Thank you, ma'am. Next. Thank
Hi,
you.
I'm Liz Bryan from Holston Lane, Bryan. And I walked up to Nesbitt Lane today, and it seems like the issue could be resolved with a chairlift, because I also walked along West Virginia, and there's several houses that have to park on the street and take a chairlift up or walk more than 26, 28 steps to get to their house if they're up above West Virginia or if they're down below West Virginia. There are lots of houses that fall into the same category. And, you know, I feel bad if you need it to be able to get up because you've gotten older. But, you know, when you buy the house, you kind of get what you get. My husband and I bought 4.5 years ago. We turned down many houses that were full of stairs because we thought, we're going to live here the rest of our life, and we're not going to be able to handle that at some point. And as far as people renting the house in the summer, the students, they've been renting it all these years, and I think the students are going to be fine coming up Nesbitt, which is a gravel driveway and a big parking area, which is great for all the cars to park in, and then they have to walk down. But it does seem like a little chairlift would solve the problem if it's just a matter of you can't navigate the stairs anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next.
I'm Jerry Bowden. Oops, thank you. I am Jerry Bowden. My husband and I had no intention of buying the house until after our 42-year-old son died unexpectedly in the fall of 2013. And because his widow had too much trouble going there and was so sad that David was gone, we bought it from her. Had we chosen a house, perhaps we would have chosen one we could use into our old age, but we had no choice. We wanted to keep David's spirit alive, and we have done that by buying the house, and now we would like to have level access to it.
Thank you, Ms. Bowden. Who's next? Who's next?
Hi, my name is Deborah Seyle, Seyle, and I'm part of the Hope Clan. Also have been coming here for all of my life. And I was just horrified when I even heard the mention of a concrete driveway next to Winlithia. It's a sacred place, and to just stand there, you can feel that. And being a biologist, I see no way that the wildlife and the flowers and the creek itself are not going to be affected by the construction. I can't even envision that being a possibility without some severe destruction to that area. So I wholeheartedly invite you to say no to this. There are just too many people that treasure this place. It's just had such a special spot in our history for all these generations. So it makes no sense to make this kind of sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Mr. Bowden, you've already spoken. Well, I don't want to get into a debate out in the audience. Okay? Okay. Okay. I don't mean to be rude, but you know, we got to go by the procedures. Nobody else?
I have some to read, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. How many have you got?
65.
Okay.
Dear Town Council, as a lifelong Montreater, I was distressed to hear of the planned driveway construction near the Wendlithia Spring on North Carolina Terrace. This spring is one of the things that makes Montreat truly unique, a historic landmark, a peaceful sanctuary, and a place of beauty and community. Marring it with further development around the site seems wrong to all that Montreat means to represent. Some time ago, a survey was conducted asking residents to describe Montreat. Not only did the words mountain retreat appear in responses, but also most frequently beautiful, sanctuary, peaceful, community, green. Development should not come at the expense of what makes Montreat unique. I'm afraid this driveway near Wendlithia Spring does just that and therefore should not be allowed to go forward. Thank you for your time. Michael Peters, Jr., 319 North Carolina Terrace. Hello, I wanted to add to the voices and say that I oppose allowing a driveway to be built next to the spring. Annalise Calmus. Dear Montreat Town Council, I am just hearing of the proposal to build a driveway close to Wendlithia Spring. I am a North Carolina Terrace property owner and grew up as a child walking to the spring with my grandparents and parents to get water as part of our Montreat experience. I sympathize with the owners of the home adjacent that have a tight driveway at the end of Nesbitt. With the limited information that I have and a tight timetable to share my views, I oppose the driveway close to the spring. I do hope that the creek area around the spring that is public land will be restored as close to native habitat as is feasible. Thanks for your service to our town and the myriad of issues that you must navigate trying to help us maintain the many qualities about Montreat that make it special. W. Powell Jones, 314 North Carolina Terrace. Dear Town Council, please do not allow the proposed driveway adjacent to the Wendlithia Spring on North Carolina Terrace. Allowing this encroachment would do irreversible environmental damage to the area and undermine a peaceful destination enjoyed by generations of Montreaters. There is already existing access for parking behind the Bowden residence, accessible from Nesbitt Lane. Please consider allowing them to expand that area if they need additional parking. Please reject this damaging proposal. Eleanor Frith Peters, 317 and 319 North Carolina Terrace. Good evening. My wife Pamela and I are full-time residents of Montreat, having moved here in 2015. I am writing to add our voices to the opposition of the proposal to put a concrete driveway between the Wendlithia Spring and Small Creek on North Carolina Terrace. Without a doubt, the current proposal will greatly diminish the special nature of the pristine Wendlithia Spring. As I'm sure you're aware, this has long been a historic site, which is regularly visited by Montreat residents and guests collecting the pure mountain water. It is my understanding that much of this proposed work will take place on public land, and we respectfully urge the Town Council to focus instead on the solution, which uses the Bowden's own property rather than public land. Thank you for your kind and thoughtful consideration. Thomas and Pamela Proctor. Dear Mr. Mayor and Town Commissioners, I am writing in opposition of the proposed driveway on North Carolina Terrace between the Wendlithia Spring and existing creek. There are several issues that I think need to be considered before any approval should proceed. I understand the driveway is to be 9 feet wide, and looking at the space, there appears to be just 9 feet between a tree and a man-made stone structure. In any construction that I have done, If something is being built to a certain size, additional space on either side would need to be either cleared or otherwise affected. So will the tree come down or will the stone structure be removed? More importantly, what is in the stone structure? Does the stone structure contain something that might be environmentally harmful if disturbed? Has that been addressed? Has an environmental impact study on the natural spring been done? When Lithia is a gift to not only our immediate community, but the community at large. Its demise would be a tragedy for all presently using it, for all those with fond memories of it, and for future generations who will be denied its existence. I do not want to be that person who has to say, I remember when, and talk about it in the past tense. How is the driveway going to be constructed? Wade Burns told me that it is to be concrete. Has a soil ground evaluation been done? I remember discussion about the prior town hall location on Florida Terrace and what rock lay beneath that location. Will the ground support such a structure, or will a retaining wall be necessary? In my non-structural engineering position, I think that concrete is heavy. After all, our cars drive on it on highways. If it is poor, how far out will the channels be put in? And again, will the underlying soil bear the weight appropriately? Is there a water remediation plan in place? We all know that water flows downhill, and once it rains on the proposed driveway, how is the water going to run off? Is it to go straight down the street? Will it run down the side of the drive and create debris runoff and erosion? In another venue, 309 Virginia Avenue becomes treacherous after a heavy rain for both pedestrians and vehicle traffic due to the rocks on the road. While this is proposed as a concrete drive during the colder months, will the water runoff cause ice buildup on the public roadway, making it unsafe for walkers and drivers alike? How much of a bond is being held, and for how long will it be held to offset potential damages to the environment? If we have a drought year and no damage is reported, but the following year ends up more like this past year, with plenty of rain to fill our creeks, who will be held responsible? What are the town's recourses? And heaven forbid, what happens if the spring dries up? Who will be that person or organization to reverse the issue or make reparations? Finally, what benefits do each side receive? On the homeowner side, there is a driveway. Does this easement include the land between the drive and the home? Who is to maintain that property? If the creek is town property.
Okay, Angie, move on to the next one. That's over 3 minutes.
Okay, that was from Ann Stone, 294 North Carolina Terrace. Dear members of the Town Council, I write this to express my grave concern over the proposal to build a driveway along Winlithia Spring on North Carolina Terrace. I hope that you will reject this proposal. Sincerely, Kate Hayner. We want to go on record as being definitely against any destruction, modification, or rearrangement of Winlithia Springs and the surrounding area. We have had many visitors over many years, and almost all of them want to go visit Winlithia before they leave Montreat. It would be a real shame to change or remove such a well-known landmark. Suzanne and Bill McCaskill. Dear Commissioners, I write with great concern about a pending permit application to build a concrete driveway at the base of the historic Winlithia Spring, dividing the spring from the Flat Creek drainage. Even if engineers assure you that a culvert can convey the waters of the spring under the pavement, the bigger point is that a sacred, prayer-filled space that is part of the town's cherished heritage will be lost. The cement will also convey more sediment, oil, metals, and plastics into the watershed. Please consider the general welfare of the town and future generations. Sincerely, Heather Williams, 319 Assembly Drive. Dear Town of Montreat representatives, I would like to formally state my opposition to the permit for a driveway and parking area to be constructed on the creek adjacent to the Winlithia Springs. As a state licensed general contractor, I believe that a construction project of this nature would have an irreversible negative impact on this significant and important natural resource. I urge you to deny this permit. Aaron Merritt. Please do not allow Winlithia Spring to be destroyed. And by the way, the lead pipe should probably be replaced. Thanks, Beth and John Casper, 92 Kanawha. Sis and I would like to join our voices to the chorus of the anti-Winlithia choir in opposition to the proposal of creating a new access adjacent to the Winlithia fountain that has existed in my memory for 80 plus years. It would be a disaster that could never be corrected if the town council should give their approval. I would respectfully request that the council deny the request of the parties requesting the council approval. Yours sincerely, Henry Wild, 424 West Virginia Terrace. Dear Board of Commissioners, I am writing to express deep concern about putting a private driveway beside the Winlithia Spring. The truth of the matter is that I can't believe an easement request is being considered. Why create potential traffic safety issues and cause damage to the environment when the property in question can be accessed from above the house from Nesbitt Lane with relative ease? It makes no sense to be considering tearing up the side by the Winlithia Fountain, which is a beloved historic landmark, and creating unknown long-term problems when there is an alternative solution. Jenny Newell, 431 Graybeard Trail. I'm opposed to the petition to allow a driveway right by Winlithia Springs. I'm a property owner whose house is a few hundred feet away and have been visiting Winlithia for 64 years. It is a Montreat institution and should not be treated in this manner. There is parking available to the house, both in the front of it and behind it. A driveway destroys the plant and dirt that currently absorbs stormwater and replaces them with a hard surface that collects and concentrates stormwater, then speeds it up, and then discharges it on the road right by the spring, which attracts people and traffic. Parked cars lead to the possibility of pollution of the water. A bad idea and damaging to a Montreat institution. I oppose it. Russ Jeter. Dear Mayor Helms and Board of Commissioners, I am writing to strongly urge you to vote against permitting the driveway construction contemplated to take place in direct proximity of the historic Winlithia Spring. Whatever benefit or utility this driveway will bring to the users is vastly outweighed by the damage it would cause to Winlithia, the community, and the future generations of Montreaters who would be left with a much altered and compromised version of the Springs. As those appointed to represent the interests of the community, it is incumbent upon you to protect the beauty and history of Montreat that the community holds dear. Allowing this construction to proceed would be an abdication of that responsibility. May we not be remembered as the generation that paved paradise and put up a parking lot. In a culture that increasingly devalues history, tradition, truth, and beauty, Montreat stands as a bulwark. It must continue to do so. Please vote no on the driveway construction. Sincerely, Trey Ricks. Okay. To whom it may concern, it is my understanding that on 5/13/21, there will be a proposal to put a concrete driveway between the spring and the creek in Winlithia. This was very disappointing for me to hear. I have been going to Montreat my entire life of 34 years. My family owns a house on West Virginia Terrace. One of the best things about Montreat is that it is a place to get away from everything else. It is not meant to be developed. Unfortunately, I have been hearing a lot of news lately about tearing down historic buildings to build a lodge, which is unnecessary because there is plenty of lodging available. I've also heard about the driveway proposal. This sets a terrible precedent because it is on public land. What is to stop another person from building something else on public land? You all are elected to represent the interests of the people of Montreat, not to represent outside interests. All you need to do to see why this is a terrible idea is to take a walk down West Virginia Terrace. There are 3 separate locations where large trucks have destroyed telephone and power lines. Exposed wires are on the road and have been for months. These roads are not built for large construction vehicles. I hope that you will all do the right thing and prevent this driveway from being built. Please do not wipe clean the land for the green paper man. Thank you all for the consideration. Richard McKee. Hello, I'm writing you to request that you reject the proposal for a concrete driveway between the spring and the creek, making it private land. This would be terrible for the community and a huge loss. I've been going to Lithia for 35 years, and it is part of my morning routine whenever I'm in Montreat. This is a selfish request by a resident, and I sincerely hope that it is appropriately declined. Best regards, Russell Jeter. Hello, my name is William Jeter. My family is in its 5th generation of a cottage on the corner of West Virginia and North Carolina. I'm a former staffer and proudly a Montreat patron since my first year of gainful employment. One of our favorite things to do is to go to the spring in the morning and fill up a couple of pitchers of water for the day. It was the first thing I did when I arrived tonight. I would be deeply upset if something happened to the spring and strongly oppose anything that might affect the spring. Best wishes, William Jeter. Good evening. I am writing to oppose the construction of the proposed driveway on public lands. I believe this is to be a slippery slope, not only for our public lands, but also for spring and creek restriction in our beautiful valley. All the best, Irvin Grove. First, like many homes in Montreat, and specifically on North Carolina Terrace, the home was designed and built to be accessed by only stairs. Our house at 217 is a specific example. 222 and 226 are the same way. Villa Melrose was built with the same design in mind, with beautiful marble steps leading down to the front of the lot. Even so, special accommodation was granted to the homeowners, allowing them to build a garage across North Carolina Terrace on public property. That garage is still in use, and I presume an easement was conveyed with the most recent purchase. This was the configuration and public accommodation that was in place when the current owners purchased the property. Second, I was chair of Montreat and one of its 2 negotiators in 2012 when the Montreat Association and the town of Montreat entered into the most recent amendment to the right-of-way agreement. It was the intention of the 2 parties, and the document reflects an agreement to maintain the historical structures that define the character of Montreat, particularly those that exist within right-of-way. When Lithia was not included in this agreement because it is not maintained by MRA. However, the intent of preserving Montreat's character was clear. The aesthetic of the spring is clearly linked to the running water of the creek. Bulldozing a driveway within feet of the spring structure and forever severing it from the creek with a private driveway taken out of public use would result in irrevocable damage to the community. It is completely unreasonable for the owners to now ask the community to suffer the destruction of the creek side and creek bed and risk our children's safety simply because the owners have changed their minds and now want to drive up to the living level in a way which was never designed nor intended. Their parking is already publicly accommodated. Many other homes have the same condition of steps to reach the home. Should the council grant a permit to use public space for a purely private use, on what grounds could the town deny any number of other driveways that would destroy the character of our beloved community? Grace and peace, Frank Spencer. Hello, it has come to my attention that there is a plan to destroy a Montreat landmark. I would hope the town council is doing everything they can to preserve the history and magic of Montreat. The spring is one of those places that generations go back to and are so pleased to see the history has been preserved. A spring never changing, locked in time, that tastes the same 10 years ago as it did 30 years ago, as it does today. It would be a travesty to damage the Lithia Springs, just as it would be a travesty to remove the Montreat stone arches. While I don't have a vested interest, I hope that you can verify the destruction of the Lithia Spring is only hearsay and not a real plan of action. Perrin, Maine. Hello, dear beings. Thank you for your part in stewarding the beautiful, powerful, sacred town of Montreat. I wish to formally recognize the request that the driveway permit adjacent to Lithia Springs be denied. This historical resource and beautiful site is so pure and lovely and makes Montreat into an even more special and unique place in our area. The mountains are blessed with waters. Our people are blessed with the stewarding of the mountains and the waters. Thank you for protecting this magical spot by denying the permit. I'm a longtime resident and homeowner in Swannanoa, BJ Harden Jones. To whom it may concern, I am writing to express my opposition to the proposed driveway next to Lithia Spring. I am shocked that the town would consider a most brazen request to build a driveway to this house when there is a parking already off Nesbitt. Is it just an inconvenience for the owner to drive around to Nesbitt to access his property? Why would this even be a consideration on public land? Lithia is a treasure to Montreat and should be protected at all costs. A driveway and parking area could pose a real threat to the creek and the underground water. Cars are notorious for leaking pollutants, as is evident by looking at most any driveway with oil and antifreeze stains. Everything will wash straight into the creek. I could tell you many stories of how the creek and spring have made Montreat memories for me and my family. I plead that you will not allow this driveway to happen, and also take a hard look at how driveways are cutting up Montreat. This topic needs to be addressed, and a future plan needs to be developed to drastically limit driveway permits. It is perplexing that more work is done on the trails to stop erosion, and I hope you will see it fit to save the creek. Best regards, Greg Ledgerton. Dear members of the Town Council, thank you for your service to this beautiful historic community. As you know, there is no place like Montreat. With that in mind, I ask that you preserve Lithia's wild beauty by voting against the proposed driveway. Allowing town land to be used for this project goes against the Open Space Preservation Plan. Thank you. Ann Scott, 319 North Carolina Terrace. Dear council members, on May 13th, the council voted on the request to build a private driveway on North Carolina Terrace, which asks you to decide the balance of private interest versus public interest. My family and I implore you, for the benefit of all Montreat residents and visitors, to protect the area's public open land and decline the request to construct a driveway. My family has been using the spring for 5 generations, including as our primary source of drinking water prior to renovations to our house in the 1990s. Our children visit every time they go up and down the mountain. Every time we are there, hikers stop by and frequently visitors drive in to gather gallon jugs full of water, as I am sure many of you have. Preserving the safety of pedestrians from traffic from the proposed driveway, the safety of the spring water from runoff or other pollutants to the groundwater, and the natural beauty of an area where many come to gather is paramount. I understand that the request to build the driveway is born out of tragic circumstances for the family involved. I'm empathetic to why they believe the current design is an appropriate compromise of public and private interest. However, I also believe that the town council is wiser than to create a public tragedy to try to improve the struggles of one family. This is not simply a piece of woods. It is a cherished place for the entire community that we put at substantial risk if the plans proceed. Please consider the good of the entire town and vote to deny the building plans. Allie Spencer. Montreat Town Council members, please do not grant the permit to build a driveway between Lithia Spring and the creek. My family owns a home on North Carolina Terrace, and walking to the spring is a cherished ritual for my children who are 5 and 8, and so many other folks in Montreat. I can understand looking for creative construction solutions, but I believe a responsible solution should be found by this family. one that does not compromise public land and a beloved and historic spring. Thank you for your consideration. Anne Frith Hullinger Eichelman. Good evening. I'm a lifelong Montreater whose family owns 2 houses on North Carolina Terrace, 317 and 319. I'm very concerned about the proposal for a homeowner to build a driveway on what I understand to be town property bordering the Winlithia Spring. I can certainly sympathize with parking issues in the older part of Montreat because we rely on street parking for our homes. However, I'm opposed to a project that would diminish and potentially destroy a Montreat landmark. The spring figures prominently in many of my childhood and adult memories. I walked there almost daily with my great-grandmother as a young child. My grandmother, Nana, would send me there as soon as we arrived in Montreat to get water in a jug. Now I take young members of my family on walks there. Many of our family members still fill water jugs. The impact of construction next to the spring and the loss of the creek there would most likely affect the water supply to the spring, as well as change the environment in that part of Montreat. I hope you will choose to preserve our important resources and encourage the homeowner to find another solution that does not involve town property. Sincerely, Catherine Moffett. This one is from Ernie Regal. Dear Board of Commissioners, I write to you as a concerned member of the Montreat community. My wife, Beth Good Regal, and her family own a home at 373 Nesbitt Lane and have been part of Montreat since her grandfather's family, Reby Nesbitt, first owned the house next door back in the 1920s. Throughout all these generations and years of coming to Montreat, one constant has been our family walks to the Winlithia Spring on North Carolina Terrace. We recently learned of the proposed driveway construction next to the spring on public property and have a number of questions about whether this is the best way to solve what the homeowner perceives as a problem. Putting aside any legal or process issues for the moment, we need to ask 2 questions. Number 1, is there not a viable option to access the back of the homeowner's home by rerouting his current driveway down and through his backyard? He may not want to use part of his backyard for this purpose, but a quick look at his current driveway coming in off Nesbitt Lane and backyard sure does present this as a feasible option to the untrained eye. What analysis and by whom has been performed on an option like this? On the other hand, is there a serious reason why the property owner cannot build a driveway through part of his front yard, other than not wanting to give up part of the front yard to a driveway? Since this is not a case where a homeowner does not already have a space dedicated for a driveway, it seems like the bar should be raised for the Board of Commissioners to agree to dedicate public property for private use. Presumably, the Board of Commissioners would want all reasonable private options exhausted before effectively converting public greenway to a private use with what will be a large impervious surface area. How are the risks? Number 2, how are the risks to the Winlithia Spring being factored into this decision? It seems like there are at least 2 important aspects here to consider. First, the possible adverse impact of heavy equipment and driveway construction so close to the spring. If I were on the Board of Commissioners, I would want to exhaust all other means of addressing this problem before risking the ruin of such an iconic and historically significant part of Montreat, especially since the board has the discretion not to approve the proposed plan. Second, the beauty and aesthetics of the spring as it currently sits will no doubt suffer immensely with the proposed driveway wedged in between the spring and the creek bed. This idyllic setting of the spring will be spoiled when it really doesn't have to be. From a legal standpoint, I would be interested to hear what the board has been advised regarding the town's potential monetary exposure for injuries or damages incurred on the driveway after its completion, since it will be on town property. Furthermore, it would be interesting to learn how the board will handle future similar requests. Ernie Regal. Montreat Board of Commissioners. Several thoughts lead me to ask you, the commissioners, to please deny this request for a driveway between the creek and the Winlithia Spring, a public historical landmark. First and foremost, this home has a driveway off Nesbitt Lane. Living on the water's edge comes with additional responsibilities. For the good fortune of living next to a creek in the Winlithia Spring, the proposer has additional duties to protect the water and the surrounding native and natural environment. Lastly, it appears the planning and zoning regulations would allow this driveway. However, it gives the Board of Commissioners the final decision. I believe the final decision lies with the commissioners for situations just like this one for a reason, where the letter of the law is met, but there are important other factors to consider. The important factor is the creek environment, the historical Winlithia Spring, and their close proximity to the proposed second driveway. Is the driveway, which is a private interest, if approved, worth the risk of damage to the spring and the creek, which is the public interest? Has every other option for this driveway been considered? I know this decision is in capable hands. Just look at what a beautiful special place Montreat is. Please deny this proposed second driveway for the sake of the beauty of the Winlithia Spring in Montreat. Sincerely, Sarah Purvis Williams. Dear Town Council, please do not approve the construction of the driveway next to the Winlithia Spring on North Carolina Terrace. A driveway is unnecessary and would disrupt the purity of the creek and potentially the spring. The Bowdens have a road above their home on Nesbitt Lane with ample parking. An elevator could be installed to access their home without destroying the spring and accompanying landscape. Please do not approve of this driveway construction. Sincerely, Becky Garrity, 317 North Carolina Terrace. Good evening. We are writing to express our opposition to the proposed private driveway on public land around Winlithia Spring. The couple owning this property already has a driveway and access, unlike many homeowners in Montreat. Granting the driveway would be a dangerous precedent and also a risk to one of Montreat's historic treasures. Thank you for allowing us to express our opinion and for all that you do for Montreat. Sincerely, Margaret and Emmett Berry, 314 North Carolina Terrace. Good evening. As a longtime resident that is appreciative of Montreat keeping open public use of the Winlithia Spring, I am upset with the threat to put a private driveway and private parking lot there. The spring is an asset to the community and should be kept open to all the public. Putting a private driveway between the creek and the grotto and a private parking lot above will damage not only the purity of the water, but also the beauty and feeling of the spring. We mountain people are blessed with pure water. Let us continue to share that blessing with all. J. File from Black Mountain. This one is from Jim Frith Jr. I'm distressed by the proposal by the current owners of 287 North Carolina Terrace to build a driveway between the creek and Winlithia Spring. I was shocked and dismayed to see that they have already cut down trees and vegetation along the path of the proposed driveway. This driveway is unnecessary, destructive of a historic site, and against public interest. Winlithia Spring has been the first place that 6 generations of my family members and far into extended family have visited each time they come to Montreat, going back to 1906. To this day, water from the spring is celebrated and carried back to the houses to be consumed throughout people's stay, then carried back to other parts of the country to extend and savor a piece of Montreat. I lived at 287 North Carolina Terrace for several years. When I lived there, a wide range of people of all ages visited the spring frequently to get water. Some sat to take in the peace of the place. Community members frequently visited to clean, weed, and maintain the spring, including leaving potted flowers. This proposed driveway would split and destroy the peaceful ambiance of this setting. Over the past few years, the flow of water at Winlithia has slowed even when we have had ample rain. There is still a decent flow, but much less than when I was younger. I've always believed that the spring was fed by the same source as the creek. The creek bubbles out of the ground not far above the place where the proposed driveway would cover the creek. This driveway would excavate and pack the ground between the spring and its source, and it would almost certainly disrupt, if not destroy, the flow of water to the spring. To be clear, the creek does not feed the spring. I once had the water from the spring tested, and it was quite pure, despite an abundance of leaves, algae, and frogs' eggs in the creek. Rather, the lay of the land suggests that the underground flow of water to the spring is likely to come from before where the creek bubbles out of the ground and to travel right where the driveway would be. Putting a pipe to allow the creek to flow under the driveway would not save the spring. An investment should be made in opening up the flow of the spring, not in choking it off. Why then are they asking for the right to put a driveway there? In all the years my family lived in that house, parking was never an issue. The house already has a covered garage across and down the street. More to the point, it already has a spacious parking lot and level driveway above the house. I understand that the owners complained about the steps down from their parking lot. There is currently a gentle staircase of 25 steps down to a footbridge into the second floor. If they do not want to enter by the footbridge, then another 11 steps will take them to the back door of the kitchen. This is not a hardship. If, however, they are severely physically impaired and truly have difficulty navigating these stairs, the neighbors already have a driveway that goes almost to the back kitchen door. They could explore sharing that driveway and perhaps extending it to the back door. Alternately, it would be Jim Frith Jr. Dear Council, as many have been doing, I am following the concerns of citizens about the change of scenery at Winlithia Springs and would like to voice my concerns with you. The destruction of the landscape around the spring, a cherished symbol in Montreat, has caused an alarming response to many residents and to the people who make it part of their spiritual sojourn to include its biblical symbolism when coming to conferences at Montreat. First, please acknowledge that the proposed driveway is destroying any sense of nature's peacefulness and beauty around the spring. Just the tree removal alone has had a major impact on the neighborhood and the rest of we cottage owners who take walks there regularly. Is there no protection in place against these kinds of activities? Is it nothing personal against the property owner, but there must be some limit as to what people can do to impact their community? Second, please consider the possible damage to the spring itself. Please consider that there is no guarantee that construction will not cause a change in the flow of water, thus drying up Winlithia. And please consider the possible damage to the historic rock structure itself. There is no guarantee that it will not be damaged by construction of an unnecessary driveway to a home that already has one that works. Lastly, my concern is honoring the greenway space, which was put in place some years ago with the help of Susan Neville's volunteer efforts. Even though an exception for driveways is permitted, is this not going directly against the main purpose of the greenway concept, overriding the stated effort to keep the roadside right-of-ways green whenever possible, especially when the requested drive is next to a treasured historic landmark? This driveway will be an unsightly and distasteful addition to its surroundings. I feel that the council is obliged to we taxpayers to protect us from what many would call unnecessary personal accommodation. Saving Winlithia is a far greater concern than a second driveway of its next door neighbor. I beg of you to honor these citizens' concerns and requests to stop it, and I beg of you to vote no to allowing this driveway to be put into this historic landmark. The idea is not respectful of the neighbors nor the rest of Montreat. Council, you are our only protection against ideas that run against the greater cause of quality of life in Montreat. So please dig deep in your responsibility as our elected officials to protect our neighborhoods, your neighborhoods. Very respectfully yours, Nancy Thomas, 202 Louisiana Road. The driveway proposal is to use town land for a private driveway and private use, which includes the part-time owner's written efforts to increase the rental of their house up to 21 guests, which will be from 4 to 10 cars parked and going in and out, all on top of a mountain heritage site. No problem. Dear Sir or Madam, I'm writing to express my feelings for the town council meeting. I'm against the proposed driveway at 287 North Carolina Terrace, next to and above the Winlithia Spring. It threatens the fundamental nature of Montreat as we know it. Julian Mintz V. Dear Mayor Helms and Board of Commissioners, I'm writing to express my intense disapproval of issuing a permit to build a driveway at the historic Winlithia Spring. This spring has proved a beautiful and serene place for many who live in and visit Montreat. I personally have fond memories of this area as it is right down the street from our cottage, Stardale, at 226 North Carolina Terrace. This construction would not only jeopardize the springs themselves, but also the tranquility and history of Winlithia. I hope you will vote against this driveway permitting, as it is your duty to protect our beloved Montreat from the unnecessary and invasive alterations proposed here. Montreat is a beauty like no other, due in large part to our community's commitment to the preservation of places like this within our gates. I hope you will do your part in upholding that sacred oath and vote no to this proposal. Sincerely, John McCready Williams. Dear Commissioners, I am writing to oppose the driveway development at the Winlithia Spring. It is remarkable that Zoning Administrator Adams, in his letter to the Commissioners, can cite the specific goals in the 2008 Comprehensive Plan and still approve such a request. This development definitely does not achieve, as stated in Comprehensive Plan Goal A, preserving the character, quality of life, and natural beauty of this area, where Montreaters have been gathering, socializing, and filling up their jugs for over 100 years. The development will not, as stated in Goal C, preserve the character of the natural and man-made environments of Winlithia Springs. I ask that the Commissioners please study Mr. Adams' May 5th submission to the Council carefully. He does quote specific town goals in the early pages. Now, if you will, please go through Mr. Adams' submission and find the language where he explains how this driveway development fully complies with goals A, C, D, and E. Where is this explanation from the zoning administrator? It is not there. The vital goals given in the comprehensive plan are simply treated as perfunctory boilerplate to be referenced and then ignored. How can the commissioners possibly accept such a submission? Was the 2008 comprehensive plan written for show, something that allows the town to check a box for responsible leadership? Imagine the mission statement for an organic farming cooperative stresses the importance of preserving the soil. Can Farmer Jones approach the board, cite the mission statement, and then propose crop dusting with DDT? My understanding is that the family requesting the driveway already has a fairly easy access to their home from above. It's the convenience of a single family to be given greater importance than the traditions and desires of the entire town. Also note that the architect given in the driveway plans, Wade Burns, is a voting member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I assume he recused himself for this decision, an action which I would applaud. Ask the commissioners to look into this. If Mr. Burns did not recuse himself, he should resign. Please reject this zoning application. Sincerely, Robert Warner, 346 Chapman Road. Hello. I'm emailing to voice my concerns against the driveway proposed near Winlithia, and I'm opposed to the easement being granted for many reasons, including safety, environmental, and historic preservation. The property already has an accommodation for a garage and town right-of-way. It's also concerning how quickly the project is being pushed through with minimal effort to explore alternative options. The driveway proposed will diminish the beautiful and historic Winlithia Spring and also set a bad precedent for future development crossing creeks, springs, and water sources. Winlithia has been used as a public water source for generations. Additional concerns are as follows. Safety and traffic. The proposed connection point is the apex of a difficult curve on North Carolina Terrace. Often, 2 or 3 cars are parked along the road while people fill water jugs. One space often used is at the proposed connection point. Children play at the spring. Pedestrians walk by hourly. The driveway would increase safety issues. Historic preservation. The structure of Winlithia is more than 100 years old. It has been a Montreat landmark for many generations. It is very close to the line between the right-of-way and the green space. Use of right-of-way. The majority of the proposed driveway would not touch the homeowner's property except at the highest point where the driveway would cross the creek. The connection point at North Carolina Terrace does not touch the homeowner's property at all. Right-of-way is designed for public access, not private use. This section is not a platted road. Environmental. There are concerns as to the environmental impact in the creek from the heavy equipment used to build it and the amount of dirt that will be moved. Use by cars will create the potential for oils, etc., to get into the creek. Piping the creek at the top could change the flow. There is also a spring which crosses the proposed driveway much closer to North Carolina Terrace. It would also have to be piped. Other options for access exist. There are other options for access to the house, primarily from Nesbitt Lane. These options would have no impact on Winlithia. Damage from heavy equipment. The use of heavy equipment up the left bank of the creek to remove and repair stone walls that have been damaged poses a threat to the structure of Winlithia. Please listen to these concerns and those of my neighbors. As a 5th-generation Montreater, it will be devastating if the spring and adjacent creek be destroyed by a rushed driveway project. There should be no question that protecting this space should be top priority. Best wishes, Elizabeth Hinchin, 215 North Carolina Terrace. Please, Town Council, address this situation. I'm a Montreater that has enjoyed the spring water all my life. I have carried many a jar of it home. Please save it for future generations. I told a friend this week that my life in Montreat is falling apart. The hotel project, which is devastating when I think of its location so near the park. Now the spring with pure water is in danger. Help me keep Montreat a retreat, and let's bring some unity and peace to its people. Please be compassionate and keep Montreat sacred. Blessings to all, Clary Phipps. It is really disheartening to think that public land around Winlithia Spring could become a concrete driveway and parking pad. Most homes in Montreat have parking issues. I realize that the proposed arrangement would increase convenience for the family. However, it would further erode the natural area that is left around the spring, which has been an iconic part of Montreat for so long. Further, it would suggest to others that the town is willing, in effect, for public land to become private property. I encourage the Town Council to support the Montreat Open Space Preservation Plan, encourage the owners to seek other solutions for their accessibility issues, and disapprove the plan for this new driveway and parking area. Thank you for your consideration, Nancy Midget. I am deeply distressed by the destruction underway between 287 North Carolina Terrace and the Winlithia Spring. This has been a beautiful, natural, park-like spot in Montreat for generations and should be preserved for generations to come. It has been a lovely picnic location where children and adults could listen to birds, watch wildlife, and drink water flowing from the rocks of the mountain while enjoying the sight and sound of the lovely stream flowing nearby. In this era, very few people can experience anything like this. The need for a driveway across the town's greenway at this location is difficult to understand, since there is access to the house via Nesbitt Lane with space to park behind the house. Many homes in Montreat accommodate people with lower mobility by the use of an elevator on a rail that runs from the street to the porch. It seems that this approach could easily solve the challenges at 287 North Carolina Terrace as well. Commandeering the green space for personal use so that they don't have to use their own garden area seems like an audacious misappropriation of land, the natural spaces that should be protected and preserved for public benefit. This driveway would not preserve and enhance the community's image as stated in the 2008 Comprehensive Plan, nor would it be responsible growth, and it definitely does not protect the character of the community. I urge the council to abide by your own comprehensive plan and deny the request for permission to build a driveway through the green space. Thank you, Nancy Hullinger. It was a duplicate. Dear Mr. Mayor and Town Commissioners, please deny use of town right-of-way for a driveway adjacent to 287 North Carolina Terrace. I very strongly oppose this project for many reasons, all relating to the well-being of the town of Montreat. The Winlithia Spring is seriously endangered by the proposed driveway. Springs elsewhere in Montreat have been ruined by construction projects. This occurred on South Carolina Terrace and elsewhere. The proposed driveway would excavate and pack the ground between the spring and its source. It would almost certainly disrupt or destroy the flow of water to the spring. This would bring irreparable damage to an iconic and beloved feature of Montreat. Per the stated goals of the Montreat 2008 Comprehensive Plan, new development must preserve the character, quality of life, and the natural beauty of the town, and just as well must preserve the character of both the natural and the man-made environments. The lovely Winlithia Spring has been used for over 100 years as a source of pure and wonderful drinking water for all Montreaters, a daily walk destination, a family meeting place. In alignment with the goals above, it must be protected. This driveway is not a good solution to the problem of access or too many steps as one ages. There is an excellent level parking area behind the house, access from Nesbitt Road. It has an actual garage and parking on North Carolina Terrace. A better solution is that which has been customary in Montreat for decades, an incline elevator. The Bowdens have the ability to choose to do this from their back parking area or for their front parking area. They do not need a driveway through town right-of-way. This request will be at the detriment to the people of Montreat. Town right-of-ways exist for the benefit of all Montreat. Please deny this permit. The character of Montreat is more important than this unnecessary driveway. Jane Warner, 346 Chapman Road. Members of the Montreat Council, I write in opposition to the request for an easement across the right-of-way adjacent to Winlithia Springs. If granted, this would be the third time that this council has conveyed public lands to private individuals. Public right-of-ways that were forested and served as accessible walking corridors for both humans and wildlife are now in private hands with privately owned structures built on what was once forested and what was once freely accessible to the public, but sadly no more. One such transfer of public lands, right-of-way, into private hands was on Virginia, and the other was at the end on Texas Road Extension. To grant a third such closure easement would continue a process denying the public the use of lands held in trust by the town council for the public good. Again, I write in opposition of the request easement across the right-of-way adjacent to Winlithia, even with the recognition that this council has already set precedent. Mary McPhail Standard, PhD, 118 Shenandoah Terrace. Dear Mayor and Commissioners, I have read the submission of the Planning and Zoning Commission concerning the proposed driveway to be constructed at the Winlithia Spring. It examines in great detail, over 55 pages, all of the physical and engineering factors as they relate to the current zoning law, topography, elevation, driveway specifications, various slope percentages, and so forth. I ask that the commissioners not miss the forest for the trees. The report from the Planning and Zoning states that their research and consultation with the Mountain Retreat Association determined that this particular portion of property is town right-of-way and references their attached Exhibit 5, an order of dedication registered with Buncombe County. This order of dedication states that this land is dedicated for the use and benefit of town and/or general public. This land was not dedicated for the use and benefit of a private homeowner. Secondly, the 2008 Montreat Comprehensive Plan states that the new development must preserve the character, quality of life, and natural beauty of the town. Further, it must preserve the character of both the natural and man-made environments. The driveway project destroys the character of both the natural and man-made environment at the Winlithia Spring. In summary, This development violates the order of dedication and the town's own comprehensive plan. It must be rejected. Sincerely, Travis Warner, 346 Chapman Road. Dear Mayor Helms and Board of Commissioners of Montreat, I am writing to express my opposition to the proposed easement of right-of-way that the Board of Commissioners will be voting on Thursday, May 13th. This proposal is the Bowden's request for the easement on North Carolina Terrace to build a driveway next to Winlithia Spring and above the creek to their home. It is a fact that Winlithia is a special, extremely unique, and historic space for Montreat. The immediate area of the spring is surrounded by a beautiful natural setting on a curve in the road leading up to the end of North Carolina Terrace. If this easement of right-of-way is approved by the Board of Commissioners, the Bowdens plan to build a driveway up to their house. The driveway most definitely will not be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located and will be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the spring for all of the people who frequent it to collect water and enjoy nature. Our home is at the end of North Carolina Terrace, and we are privileged to be fourth-generation Montreaters. The only way to leave our house is by driving by the spring. We witnessed many people from Montreat and beyond collecting water at the spring and enjoying the creek year-round. Building this driveway would ruin the natural beauty of this area and irreparably damage the surrounding environment. We have also witnessed firsthand at our house at 222 North Carolina Terrace and 420 Kentucky Road how the modifications to the landscape affect the flow of water in and around the surrounding areas. Additionally, we have all experienced the recent effects of rainstorms as water takes the path of least resistance to flow downhill. Undoubtedly, this driveway will become a conduit for water to drain, which will overflow the best designed drainage systems, a problem we see at the other end of North Carolina Terrace with less of an incline. Furthermore, I do not believe that all other options for a driveway have been properly vetted. I have walked down Nesbitt Lane to visualize the access from above the Bowden's house. There is a driveway that runs directly behind the two houses adjacent to the Bowdens, and above this, there is a lane running to the Bowdens that stops short of the house. There have got to be options here that have not been fully examined and proposed by professionals. Finally, I would like to point out that Mr. Burns, as a contractor, has a financial interest in proposing the most expensive and elaborate solution to his clients. Other options should have been explored and vetted by an independent third party, such as the installation of a vertical platform lift that would allow the Bowdens access. Wade Burns has stated in a study he distributed to North Carolina Terrace residents that it might be a bit humiliating to have folks walking by and driving by watching someone so publicly sharing their frailty. Mr. Burns' assertion is unfounded, especially from a Montreater. Many people have these lifts in Montreat. I am 59, and I will be happy to have and use one at my house one day, as we have no driveway. Mary de Louisiaga. Montreat may need to decide who it is and who it wishes to be. We all love Montreat for who it has been for all these years. Preserving its character is critical. This requires careful and judicious decisions about what kind of development it allows and how it treats the treasures that it has. The idea of building a driveway immediately next to one of Montreat's treasures, the Winlithia Spring, works against the very spirit of the town and the people who so love it. As the comprehensive plan of Montreat says, we must prioritize preserving the historic character of the town. I urge you to take this decision based on your vision of Montreat and the vision set out in the comprehensive plan. This application should be denied. Priscilla Hayner, 319 Assembly Drive. Dear Mr. Mayor and Town Commissioners, this request on behalf of the property owners and their agent raises the issues of the benefits derived from the use of public land. This principle is expressed and plays out the power of eminent domain, which grants public entities the power to take property for public use, with the emphasis being on use that gives the benefit to the public. Public entities are restricted from taking private land unless they can clearly demonstrate the acquisition will serve and benefit the public interest. Conversely, the stewards of our public land, our town commissioners, should be diligent in preserving the principle of public interest when considering granting exclusive use of our public land to individuals. How is the public interest served? In the case of this request, the property owners are asking that the town grant them an easement, giving them exclusive use of public land to accommodate a private use. This request is a want, not a need, since ingress and egress to this home currently exists. I see no argument that can be constructed that will bring forth the conclusion that the public interest will be served by approving this request. Please vote to deny this request. Larry Moffett, 319 North Carolina Terrace. Dear Mayor Helms and Board of Commissioners, I strongly disagree with the proposed easement of right-of-way that the Board of Commissioners will be voting on tomorrow, May 13th. The damage caused by the proposed construction would forever ruin Winlithia and this lovely segment of North Carolina Terrace. There is also a very real risk of damage to nearby property that belongs to the town of Montreat and other property owners because of water flow problems caused by construction so near a spring and a creek. It is therefore your responsibility as board members to give voice to all Montreaters and to vote to oppose the proposal. Please give Montreaters a voice in this room and vote to oppose. Thank you, Jennifer Wild Fitzgerald. Dear Board of Commissioners, I have lived on North Carolina Terrace since the early 1960s, and my family has been in Montreat since 1915. I have watched the changes that have happened over the last several decades on our terrace. The character of our street was changed with the illegal addition of 2 houses onto one lot by one of our neighbors. In addition, we have had to accept a change of the character of the terrace by the renovation of a small cottage into a very large rental unit on our street. The spring is a quiet area in the corner of our street where we all like to meet and enjoy the locals and non-locals collecting water. It is a unique and special place. I believe there must be an option to construct access from Nesbitt Lane. My family likes to say to friends who are gathering that we will meet you at the spring. Please do not allow the destruction of this historic area. Thank you for your consideration, Mitzi Ledgerton. Dear Mayor and members of Town Council, just a short letter to state my opposition to the plans for a driveway next to the iconic Winlithia Spring on North Carolina Terrace. This spring is one of the treasures of Montreat. That setting in the bend of the road with the creek is truly one of the most calming spaces in Montreat. I may not understand the issues, but I cannot conceive that you would grant access on public land next to the spring to build a driveway over the creek. Access can be had from above if needed, or a lift can be built for access. Building a driveway in this location will cause irreversible harm. As always, thank you for all that you do for our community. Chip Ledgerton, 122 Eastminster Terrace. Dear Town of Montreat, I'm writing to express my opposition to the destruction of Winlithia Spring on North Carolina Terrace. As a property owner on North Carolina Terrace and a steward of our environment, I urge you to protect the earth that God has gifted us. Please save our precious water and do not allow the destruction of our mountain. Carly Fowler. Dear Mayor and Council members, as property owners on North Carolina Terrace, we oppose the proposed driveway beside the spring. A steep concrete driveway will lead to more runoff, creating soil erosion, water pollution, and disruption of the flora and fauna of a beautiful natural area. If you are truly stewards of Montreat, it is incumbent upon you to vote against this request tomorrow night. Sincerely yours, Ross and Beth O'Shea. Hello. I'm writing to express significant concern over the destruction of Winlithia Springs in Montreat. This is an important landmark that ought to be protected. The spring is a site which connects us to our past, brings back lifelong memories, and continues to provide a wonderful and refreshing destination for a short walk. Our kids enjoy frequent walks to the spring as much as our parents enjoy it. Please do not allow the wishes of a single property owner to end a time-honored tradition for hundreds of other property owners and regular visitors. Kelly Scott. I am writing to oppose the building of the driveway between the spring and the creek on North Carolina Terrace. As a lifelong Montreater, I have gone to the spring as a child, an adult, and with my children. I plan to take my grandchildren there one day. When Lithia is a cherished part of my life and in the lives of many others who love our little town, it would be a travesty to disturb this natural sanctuary. Additionally, I have seen the ruinous work of the person who intends to build the driveway. Attached is a photo that didn't come through of another example of one of his driveways located next door to the Hester homes. No one wants to see this disaster happen to our beloved beautiful creek and spring. Thank you for keeping Montreat beautiful for all. Gina Wild, 417 West Virginia Terrace. Dear Board of Commissioners, I simply want to yield my 3 minutes to Jim Frith. His fine letter, which I read yesterday, summarizes the many reasons that a driveway is not needed beside Montreat's historic spring. It should be read into the public comments twice. Beyond not being needed, granting this type of proposal sets a precedent that will haunt proceedings for a long time to come. Simply because a tributary isn't named doesn't mean it does not deserve the same protections afforded other streams in our valley. One should follow the intent of the regulation and not always the letter. Please carefully reflect on this and make a decision in the best interest of all of Montreat, which includes her many visitors that have a vested interest in this outcome. Kind regards, Bryant McIntyre. I'm finished.
Good job, Angie. Thank you. Okay. That's all public comment. Anybody else have any other public comment? I hadn't already spoken. Okay. We'll move on to, we have no old business to take care of. We do have new business. And believe it or not, item A on the agenda under new business is Wade Burns' presentation on the request for an easement right-of-way on Winlithia Springs. Wade? Wade, you've got about 10 minutes you said you were going to need.
Let me take this off. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. I would oppose this if much of what I heard was the issue. I believe in that thing that says it's a beautiful thing, but it shouldn't be destroyed, and we need to change the lead pipe. There are a number of driveways on public land that are no longer allowed, including some who have opposed this request. Now, the only public land that may be crossed by a driveway is if it is dedicated public right-of-way. Nearly 100% of all Montreat driveways at least begin on town right-of-way, even up to lengths of 50 or 100 feet, depending on the site and the topography and the drive. Many drives use the right-of-way in front of their next-door neighbors to begin the drive, so that it becomes a gentler drive when it reaches their home. Many places in Montreat, that next-door neighbor who made that accommodation was made the same accommodation with their next-door neighbor on the other side. And then the same thing happened with the two neighbors below. And I know that there are examples of that I drove past today, where the driveway starts here in front of one and lines at that, next and next, one neighbor helping another. This request is merely asking the next door neighbor, who is the town, for this approval. Neighbor helping neighbor.
I can't hear who's talking.
My architect's report on the driveway and concerns of citizens known at that time were discussed in that report, and that report was distributed in mid-March to the city officials and any of the opposing neighbors that we were aware of. The Bowdens and I have attempted to address every concern raised, including request to put a drive anywhere but where the Bowdens have requested it. The Bowden request is to put a 9-foot single-lane driveway in town right-of-way from North Carolina Terrace up to the terrace main level of their home. It is not nearly needed for convenience or out of selfishness, just because it would make their life easier. It is needed to even reasonably come and go from their home due to the inadequate access of this century-old landmark house, to get equipment needed to make major repairs, to provide safe access for their family, friends, and emergency responders, to make volunteer repairs and restoration. They have offered to make and pay for repairing storm damage in the public right-of-way near the Winlithia Spring. This will benefit the greater community and cost the citizens nothing. Most of all, the existing access to this home is a hardship more than just an inconvenience. The driveway up to the main living level will make a world of difference to the enjoyment of the Bowdens and all who will follow. There are a number of Montreat homes with no land available for a drive. Some have bought property next door, but many just won't have a chance for what most of us have, the ability to unload luggage and groceries at our front door. Neighbors of the Bowdens have driveways to their front door. Some are in right-of-way, which require town approval, and some are in green space, now prohibited. But this house, these wonderful people, benefit from the right-of-way designation specifically laid out in the property transfer agreement between the MRA and the town, that the lot next door is not designated green space, woodland district, conservation district, or other designation that would make approval of auto access to this home more unlikely. It was and remains public right-of-way where a driveway permit is appropriate and allowed under the existing ordinances with merely the sign-off of the town council. Quickly to address the messages on the signs that have appeared magically around town, which quote, "There is a proposal for the town council on 531 to put in a concrete driveway between the spring and the creek with parking on top of the creek, all on open town land, making it private land." This is what is true. The Bowdens have applied for approval to construct a concrete drive within the boundary of the town right-of-way adjacent to their home. The rest of the sign's language seems misleading. The sign claims that approving the driveway transfers title to the right-of-way land beneath the driveway to the Bowdens. This is untrue. The town does not lose ownership of the land. The difference between public right-of-way and open, in all caps, on town land, and that's open on those signs, on town land, implies the permission is for use not normally allowed by our ordinances. This is confusing, as there is no such designation in the definitions of a zoning ordinance as open land. What is true is that the zoning designation for right-of-way is where driveway connection approvals are decided, and the only place. Also, the banner "parking on top of the creek" seems intended to imply something improper. All cars crossing a creek are on top of the creek, which is flowing through a culvert beneath the pavement. Culvert pipe are required under all creek crossings, and there are many of them in Montreat. The Bowden-Winlithia Creek is protected by installed culverts under North Carolina Terrace, Virginia Road, Alabama Terrace, Tennessee Road, and Assembly Drive as the creek finally reaches Gravehead Stream. The language on the sign seems misleading and implies things not true. "Save the spring" is on these signs. This is what is true. The spring has survived 100 years of major storms, uprooting great and small trees, including many in just recent years. The spring has survived the installation of a fuel oil tank with stone walls built around it. This is immediately behind the stonework of Winlithia. Most of the earthwork for the new proposed driveway was done long ago. These construction projects by the spring were completed over 50 years ago. The spring has survived the trucks and equipment used to remove the fallen trees as they moved up and down the old, never paved, graded driveway. Most of the plants that would be in the way of the driveway construction were lost and removed as a result of recent storms. What remains on the site are very unsightly overturned stumps, a broken old major playscape, a large masonry wall sections broken by falling trees that now lay on the creek bank and even in the bed of the creek. The bank on the Bowden side of the creek is now coming alive with ferns, flowering shrubs, and a wall of iris blooms, all recently planted by the Bowdens. The remaining earthwork up by the old pond will be minimal, and there will be no large retaining wall needed, as has been erroneously reported. Based on the history of activity on this site, great concern that the spring will be truly harmed by the driveway seems without merit. The banner, "Save the Spring," does not match what is true. Save the creek, also on the signs. This is what is true. Montreat's many small creeks, maybe 129 of them, provide a natural flow of water, support of many forms of life, and the beauty of sight and sounds of flowing water. When the Bowdens acquired their home, the creek was not visible as years of leaves and debris fully covered it. They cleaned the creek, exposing the small flowing water and freeing its soft sounds. Long ago, a pond was built across the upper end of the creek, restricting the water's flow and the aquatic migration of certain life. The proposed driveway will correct these remaining defects. The current 4-inch pipe in the pond, this photograph, will be replaced with one 18-inch culvert. Properly installed, this will permit the aquatic life migration upstream when flow is light and permit the large flow during major rain events to clean and flush the creek of leaves and debris. At the completion of the proposed project, the important functions of the successful creek, those cited by Diener and by the Army Corps of Engineers, will be restored. The Bowdens will have successfully saved the creek. Thank you. And I would love the opportunity to answer specific questions.
And where you at, Kitty? In Florida? She's not talking. Anyway. Okay. Commissioners, you have the presentation. You've probably heard and received well over 125 comments, letters, speakers, so forth. So it's up to y'all now. Do I have a motion? Need a motion to discuss it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move to deny granting an easement of right-of-way at Winlithia Springs.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Otto. Do we have a second on that motion?
Jane Alexander, I second.
I have a second from Commissioner Alexander. Now, floor is open for discussion. Commissioners, you can speak to it or not. It's up to you.
Since I made the motion, I will certainly weigh in with a few thoughts that I have here. I would say this has been one of the hardest decisions that I've sort of processed since I've been sitting on council. And I don't know if y'all been at your house, but I've been up there probably the past 35 mornings about 6 or 7 o'clock with my dog, looking at every aspect of it. And again, I'll stick to a couple of notes that I jotted down here. I just don't see this as an easy and straightforward decision. As we have seen tonight, the emotions are high, I think, on potentially both sides of the equation. I found what was 65 comments read. I quickly counted through here. I think we've probably got 50 to 60 names that are in support of what y'all are trying to accomplish up there. So, what I'm seeing is a community that's somewhat divided on that. And I think part of what makes it hard for me is when I see us split like that, sometimes, it turns into neighbor against neighbor. And I trust that we move past that and we make a decision that's based off of what's right for the town. I've seen compelling arguments on both sides. What I've kind of seen and heard over this past month from Montreat is we appreciate our history. We love to protect our environment. We are open to some development at times. And we look for ways, and I think, again, the names here that are in support, we look for ways to try to help our neighbors here. So as I said, after many trips to the spring, conversations, letters, and prayer, I've concluded that the drive would not be, and as stated, it's not on private property. We're not asking or presented here a variance. It's public property. And what I am seeing and hearing is, since this land does belong to the town, and what the community is speaking and what is, they see use in this piece of property here. And so because of that reason, I must say no, because the community deems this as useful property to the town.
Thank you, Commissioner Otto.
I would also like to reiterate how hard a decision this is, knowing so many people who are involved in this, and I see need on one side, on both sides. But for me, the idea with the spring, and the idea of that being land that is actually not to be given to one group, one person, one family, but it belongs to the community, and the community needs that land for their history. And I really appreciate all the parties, and like Kent, I think we all need to heal. We need to stand behind each other and to be there. There were some harsh comments that were written in letters, and I'd like to see those sort of eased over. And that's why I seconded that motion.
Mayor Helms? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Kitty.
All right, I'm going to have something to say then.
Okay. I'll
This has
listen.
been okay. This has been a real heartbreaker for me because I've known and loved Jim and Jerry for years. And I understand the emotions that are wrapped up in the house that holds some of David's last memories. I wish that Wade had foreseen the opposition that his design was going to ignite in the community and maybe look for another solution. I agree to think that about the hurt that the Bowdens have already suffered. And I hope that fences can be mended regardless of the outcome. And I would love to see this community wrap their arms around them and make sure we don't carry on hard feelings. I'd like to see them have access to their home, but I've listened carefully to many points made by the opposition. I heard a lot of undocumented engineering claims that I can't comment one way or the other. But I do think that the driveway has potential problems. And I also am concerned about disruption that the property so close to the stream could possibly cause. And for these and other reasons expressed by the community, I'm going to choose to vote no. I talked to Commissioner Widmer this afternoon and got his permission to share what would have been his vote had he been at the meeting tonight, and he would have also voted no.
Thank you, Kitty. Alice, you want to say anything?
Just a couple of words, echoing all that's been said in terms of emotion, heartbreak, stories of grandmothers and great grandmothers and grandfathers. And in making a decision, we have to set that aside. What I see is on these cards a request for having level access to 287 North Carolina Terrace, followed by constructing a driveway. The objective, it seems to me, is level access, having level access. And so I keep coming back to the notion of, has absolutely every possibility been exhausted to make level access and easy access into the house possible? It's presumptuous of us to suggest, of anybody else to suggest a solution. But I do focus on what this request is, which is level access to the house. So I hope that there's a solution there. I hope that can be achieved, because that seems to be the critical need in this. I'd like to say something about the closing of the 2 rights of way in June of 2019 by this commission. I'm very proud of the work that we've done there. This was a case-by-case decision, as always this kind of issue is. When you close a right of way, or when you take public land out of the public and turn it over to a private homeowner. And as you know, when you close a right of way, you close it. You split the property between the adjoining owners, and that land becomes theirs, and then property tax is paid on that extra land, so the town does accrue some benefit there. And in both of those cases, Texas Road Extension and Virginia Road, there was not neighbor opposition. If you read the minutes, there was one concern expressed on Texas Road Extension by Ms. Strickland. There were no possible concern of what the appearance would be. There were no concerns expressed on the Virginia Terrace Road. In fact, a neighbor was there supporting the request for the closing of that right of way. There were 2 general comments. One, just the precedent regarding MRA of just closing roads that came from MRA. And there was another, just caution and request that we consider keeping all of rights of way as green space. But other than that, according to the minutes and according to my recollection, perhaps my commissioner colleagues remember it differently. But that was closing a right of way that takes that land off of the town books. This is a request for an easement, as I understand it, where the town maintains ownership. The right of way is not, there's not a request that the right of way be closed. So none of those other issues ensue. And because the town still owns the property through this easement, then I don't know what our liability is. I do think it could be issues. We've not explored that. But I see this as a different situation from the granting of 2 rights of way in June 2019 that I think we handled. All of these have to be handled case by case. This again is another case of example of handling case by case. And unlike in those 2, where there was not neighbor opposition, we heard lots of opposition on this project, with very substantive comments, and again, many heartfelt comments. And when I make my decision, I am doing the best I can to pull the heartfelt out and to focus on the substance. And I think it is just, I think it is, I think, well, I don't think, I will say no to this project. because of the difference in the request, frankly, that the easement versus closing the right of way. And that's my decision.
Thank you, Commissioner Lentz. Commissioners have spoken to the issue. I have a motion from Commissioner Otto, I have a second, Commissioner Alexander, and all the commissioners except for Commissioner Widmer, which I did, we did hear his wishes, Kitty, but you can't give a proxy vote.
Right. Yeah,
So
he
is Kitty
understood
going to be
that.
able to vote on this? She is, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Kitty, did you say aye?
I said aye, yes.
Okay, I didn't hear you. Okay, that's 4 ayes and no no's, so the request is denied. Item B is the upgrade of water meter reading system. Oh, y'all are gonna leave when we start to make sausage now, aren't you? Okay, upgrade to the water meter reading system. Barry, you gonna do the presentation on this? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Council, what I've got before you tonight is this is for the computer. This is for the computer and the software that goes in our vehicle to do the meter reads. Currently, our meters and the antennas that are in the ground, if we need to have them repaired or replaced, they are now obsolete. They're not making any more parts or repairing any units. They send us a completely new unit that's a different style, and our unit in our truck will not read them. Currently, I have about 160 meters over in the shop that need to be replaced. And once I do that and we install that in the ground, we will have to go and manually read them, and Miss Taylor will have to manually enter them into our billing system. So this will be the upgrade for that. Is what that'll be over now that our stuff's pretty much obsolete. Now our meters are, I found out the other day, they got a 20-year warranty. We've reached our 10-year mark, so everything that I get replaced now is at 50%. So for the next 10 years, we'll be replacing meters at a 50% rate.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have a question of Barry? Anybody? Can I get a motion then?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the quote from Waterworks, Inc. in the amount of $6,061.93.
I have a motion from Commissioner Otto. Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Lentz. I heard you. Any further discussion or questions of Barry? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes carry.
That'd be me, sir.
Barry, you're up.
What I have here is for road repairing. And I looked at multiple spots in towns that we've got places that need repairs everywhere. And, with the past year, we've been, hard on funding. I went around and looked at several places to where we could get the best bang for our buck, where we could put more asphalt down instead of having to pay for labor in repairing infrastructure or widening the road to meet our street standards. Missouri Road, from the crosswalk at Appalachian up to just above, it would be about midway or a little bit below on Missouri. So it'd be kind of right there at the parking area behind the library.
Yeah, okay.
That section.
The upper parking area?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That section needs no infrastructure repair. It needs no widening. It just would require removal and repaving. And with the fuel prices the way it is, driving asphalt prices up, that's about what we could get for the funds that we have. And that would be a really good area that's in need of repair that we could take care of this year.
It's in pretty bad shape through there too.
Yes, sir.
Any questions of Barry? Can I get a motion?
Can't hear.
Okay, have a motion from Commissioner Lentz to approve the quote from CT Paving in the amount of $37,669.16 for the repair of Missouri Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second from Commissioner Alexander. Discussion? Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes carry. Since I don't think that was everybody. Okay. Okay, now insurance. That's not you, Barry? Okay, North Carolina League of Municipalities Group Insurance Renewal. Alex, is that you?
That's me.
Okay.
So for the last 4 years, we've been providing employee insurance through the North Carolina League of Municipalities insurance program. This year, our medical rates have not increased. Our life insurance rates are increasing nominally, and our dental insurance rates are decreasing nominally, so they kind of wash out. So we're asking to renew our insurance. It's for medical, dental, vision, and life insurance.
Okay. Do I have a motion from a commissioner?
I move to approve North Carolina LM Group Insurance renewal at presented rates for 2021, 2022.
I have a Commissioner Otto has made a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Alice Lentz has made a second. Discussion?
Alex, I heard you note part of them are up, part of them are down. I mean, do you have any dollar amount that you would suggest? I mean, is it going to be close to break even, you think, or is that just too many calculations?
It's going to be extremely close to breaking it. Dental insurance increases by 2%, but dental insurance is one of our cheapest insurance line items. Life insurance, I'm sorry, it decreases by 2%, not increases. Life insurance is the one that increases, and it increases from 28 cents per $1,000 to 32 cents per $1,000. But that is, we offer $10,000 insurance on our employees. So that's a nominal increase.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ayes carry. The next one is property and liability insurance renewal. Alex?
So the next two items on the agenda are actually both from the League of Municipalities as well. This property and liability insurance as item E and workers' compensation as item F. One goes up by approximately $2,000, $2,376, and one goes down by $5,461. So we actually end up netting in our favor. So we between the two, we net in our favor. So the property and liability insurance went up because we added new buildings this year. We knew that was going to happen. And the workers' compensation went down. I think it was just the luck of our year.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Please.
I move to approve NCLM property and liability insurance renewal in the amount of $21,662 for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from my Commissioner Alexander. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. Workers' comp, Alex.
Workers' comp is the one that decreases this year. This for workers' comp is about $5,461 less than it was last year. For a total of $13,421.95.
Do I have a motion?
Can I
Move to
make it?
approve NCLM workers' compensation insurance renewal in the amount of $13,421.95 for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I second.
Got all kind of seconds. Who? Kitty? Way to go, Kitty. Okay, got a motion, got a second. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. All right, the floor is open for public comment.
Just for, just for a little variety, Ann Hayner, 319 Assembly Drive. I've been watching many of these meetings on Zoom for the last few months and really, seen you all from a distance. One thing I just want to say, I really appreciate, I know it's been a learning curve for us all, not only that you're open to public comment, and especially now with more possibilities of doing that in person. I love the fact that people can come in and give comment, and Angie's doing double duty reading them, but also that we're really trying with the audio. I know Mayor Helms, you worked really hard on reminding people, and that's been a challenge. I mean, it's even for those of us up here to try and do that, but I really appreciate that. And I know the people on Zoom just appreciate that, having been in that situation. So wanted to basically say that's my first real appreciation that you all have worked on that really hard, because that really helps, I think, the whole community, even when we're, as you know, scattered sometimes across the country. We can take part. And I stayed for watching the sausage made just because I'm interested now in what goes on, even when there's not a big crowd. It's kind of interesting. And I just want to say, I really enjoyed listening to all the comments today, and both the heartfelt, opinions people had and feelings, and I could see that you all were taking them all very seriously. I really appreciated that. And hearing particularly the strong support in the community for so many of the values that we really appreciate, for protecting the stream, for protecting the environment, the trees, all those kinds of things, as well as preservation of history. And I see those as such really strong values that I'm really happy to see that a lot of people really support that. As you know, I've been working on the hotel issue, and those are some of the key themes that keep coming up for so many people, as preservation of history and preservation of our environment. Those are just such common themes. I'm really happy to see that everybody's taking them seriously, that you all are taking them seriously, and I think that bodes well for the community, for Montreat. So thank you all for your efforts.
Okay. Commissioners' comments?
Yes, I have one comment. I would encourage the community to look into the planning and zoning ordinance that will go into effect after the vote. I noticed there was not much participation, and I would encourage the community to read through those. Thank you.
Alice, do you have anything tonight?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Kent?
No, sir.
Okay. Dates to remember: Montreat Tree Board is May the 25th, 9:30 a.m. and it's by Zoom software and limited attendance. That's subject to change as the governor makes his decisions. Montreat Land Care, June the 3rd, 2021, 9 a.m. Location to be determined. And is that it? I ran out of everything. That's it. No. Planning and Zoning Commission, June 10th, 2021, 10:30 a.m. Zoom software, limited attendance. Town Council meeting, June the 10th, 2021, 7 p.m. by Zoom. And we do have the public forum at 6:30. Montreat Tree Board, June the 22nd by Zoom, limited attendance. Of course, all the limited attendance is subject to change, and Zoom meetings are limited to change. Commissioners, do you have anything else? Thank you for working so hard tonight and listening so much. And I almost reached a point where I was going to ask everybody to stand up and stretch, because I don't know if I can walk after sitting here so long. It has been a while.
I will say thank you, Angie, for all that reading tonight. Very much appreciated.
Did a good job, Angie. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Have a motion.
Second.
And boy, that's quick. Motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Kitty, we miss you.
Bye. Miss you too. I'm off to Florida tomorrow.
Doing what?
I'm off to Florida tomorrow.
Where are you tonight?
I'm at John C. Campbell Folk School,
Oh, okay.
taking ukulele.
We'll see you before long, okay?
All right. Bye.
We stand adjourned.